I believe the church is filled with great, great, great people. Most of the Christians I know are big-hearted people. Most of the Christians I know are kind-spirited people. Most of the Christians I know want to be difference makers on their blocks. They want to be difference makers at their job. They want to be difference makers in their community. I love Christians, and I've been working pretty closely with them for over 4 decades. I'm not jaded. I believe in God's people. Are there a few interesting ones? Yeah. But the church, for the most part, is this great group of great, great people. And Paul makes this interesting statement, and I'm reading from the message this morning, at least at this juncture, Ephesians chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. He said about his job, he says, my task is to bring out in the open and make plain what God, who created all of this in the first place, the air you breathe this week, the flowers you looked at, the food you ate, it's all created by him in the first place. Has been doing, what I'm talking about is what he's been doing in secret and behind the scenes all along. Through followers of Jesus like you. Through followers of Jesus like you, gathered in churches like this. Through followers of Jesus like you, gathered in churches like this, the extraordinary plan of God is becoming known. Our job is to make the plan of God known, and I want you to notice what happens as we're doing it. It's being talked about even among the angels. The angels are talking about what the church is doing. The angels are talking about what Christians are doing. We're part of something absolutely wonderful. We're part of something really amazing. We're part of the church. Titus chapter 2, verse 14. I read it this week, and it struck me talking about Jesus. Jesus gave himself for us to redeem us from every lawless deed and to purify for himself a people for his own possession, zealous for good deeds. This verse is talking about what Jesus wants to see happening in the church. He's bought us, he's redeemed us, set us free, and he's doing this work of purifying his people for his own possession. I hope you're aware of that and you're alert to that. I hope you hate sin more this Sunday than you did a week ago. I hope you hate the things in your life that you know shouldn't be there, and you're really asking God to purify you. That's what Jesus does. But I fear that the church and the community is often far more known for what it doesn't do. Oh, that's the group of people that doesn't dance, or that's the group of people that doesn't drink, or that's the group of people that doesn't, and whatever the list is. And I'm not saying that there aren't things we don't do. Yes, there are things we don't do. But I fear that in many cases, in many circumstances, the church is far more known for what it doesn't do than what it does do. And I want you to notice what Jesus bought you for. Jesus didn't buy you just so you would be purified. Jesus bought for his own possession a people who are zealous for good deeds. We as people are not just known by some list of things that we have determined are wrong. We ought to be known in this city. We ought to be known in this province. We ought to be known as the Church of Jesus Christ around the world as there is a group of people who are zealous for good deeds. We ought to be known as the group of people you go to when you need help, when you show up at the church. They're people who will do what needs to be done because they are marked and characterized by a spirit of goodness that helps people in the darkest, deepest times of life. Jesus didn't just say this so you don't dance. Jesus saved you so you will be zealous for good deeds. It's been a neat week for me to be a part of the house. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for pulling together and helping us minister at the Day in the Park last weekend. Low estimate is we touched at least 1,300 lives. It was probably 1,500 or 1,600 people. And we couldn't have pulled it off without you. And so I heard this story. And the Martinsville gang pulled a great family fun day off last Sunday in Martinsville as well. Couldn't have pulled it off without everybody doing what they could to make it happen. So this week, early in the week, one of the ladies of our church was in a grocery line, and the subject of faith came up, and the man behind her in the line was talking to her and said, well, what church do you go to? And she said, after explaining she was a Christian, she said, I go to the Neighbourhood church. I want you to catch his response. Isn't that the church that put on the barbecue for the city? Isn't that the church that put on the barbecue for the city? Friends, we never lose. We never lose when we're hospitable people. We never lose when we reach out our hands and our hearts to touch lives and make a difference in people's lives. My sister and brother-in-law and their two twin daughters are with us for the weekend. And I woke up Friday morning and Donna said, I think there's something wrong with our furnace. I said to her, you might be right. Saturday morning, there was an evidence of coolness in the house that convinced me that she probably was right. Apparently, I should have acknowledged her rightness on Friday morning. But God's timing is amazing because my brother-in-law is with me. My brother-in-law is the man who owned a plumbing and heating company in Calgary who bought the furnace that's installed. God lets my furnace break down the weekend that the repairman is here and willing to work for free. Isn't Jesus good? And so he gets on the phone and he makes connections for the part that needed to get replaced. I couldn't have even done that. I hadn't got a clue what was needed to be replaced. All I knew was I was cold. And I hop in the truck with him. I drive to the place that had the part that was needed. I went along because he had the brains, but I was supplying the money. And I got there, and the man who was handing us the part said, I know you. I know you from somewhere. You shook my hand in the park last week. We never lose, friends. We never lose when we reach out and we touch people. We're people who are characterized by being zealous for good deeds. That's our church. That's the Neighbourhood church. Zealous. Zealous, anxious to serve. Churches, for the most part, aren't doing all that well. In North America, I could share statistics now in the last 10 minutes. I won't bore you with that many of them. But let me just show you a few statistics in North America. These are neither the best nor the worst statistics I found, but the Assemblies of God in 2016, which is based in the United States, had a growth of 0.52% across the whole nation in 2016. Growth rate of 0.52. Cleveland Church of God was up 0.38%. The evangelical Lutheran were down 1.96%. And the American Baptist churches were down 1.55%. The church is not making huge inroads, sadly. And I think sometimes we don't appreciate as much as we should what we are a part of at the neighborhood. And sometimes we're so close to it, we lose sight of the great things God has been doing. Let me share you the story. I take all of these statistics from the month of April. You have to choose a month and be consistent. So here we are. In 2002, our average attendance was 140. 2002. 2008, our average attendance was 295. 2012, our average attendance was 434. And in 2018, our average attendance was 601. I want you to catch this. Over the last 16 years, the growth rate of our church, the neighborhood church, was 330%. God is doing something fabulous. God is doing something awesome. God is doing something amazing amongst us. And may we never, ever cease to be grateful. And may we never, ever think it's because of us. It certainly isn't because you have a phenomenal pastor. I'm not sure I appreciate the laughter. But the truth of the matter is, if what it took is a great, phenomenal pastor to see a church growing, almost all of our churches across North America would be growing, because almost every pastor I know is a great person and a phenomenal person. What God is doing amongst us, friends, is really unexplainable. I can't explain it, but we are part of something very special.
Yes, thank you, Jesus.
And we need to walk humbly before Him. And we need to make sure that He is being honored and He is being glorified. And He is being talked about. Why has it happened? I think it's happened in large measure, because we stayed on mission. But let me share just a couple of things to remind you about what God is doing. Last 5 years, 150 plus baptisms. I said last 5 years, 150 plus believer baptism.
Hallelujah.
This next one throws me. This next one throws me. From January 2017 to today, 36 conversions through our counseling ministry alone. That's not our youth ministry, that's not our children's ministry, that's not what's happening in our life groups or community groups, that's not what's happening in our church. That's just through our counseling ministry. Pastor Gordon has had the privilege since January of 2017 of leading 36 people to conversion to Christ. We celebrate that, and we thank you, Pastor Gordon, for your privilege. So we've stayed on mission. 2002, early 2003, we came together. We had lots and lots of discussions about what our mission was going to be as a church. And our mission has been to influence people for Jesus Christ. And I was part of that. And I helped come up with the wording, but for the last 18 months or so, I've been thinking, I think we can refresh that. I think it's maybe grown and stale. I think some of us have maybe forgotten what it is. Some of you find it hard to remember. So we chatted at the church board level. We've talked at staff meetings. We've talked at the management committee level. And how do we don't want to change what we're doing, because what we're doing is obviously being blessed by God, But how do we say our mission perhaps in a new way? And we're going to start using this phraseology as we go forward. Helping people find and follow Jesus. Helping people find and follow Jesus. Did you catch the phrase that Paul used to describe Christians? Followers of Christ gathered in churches for people who follow Christ. I want those of you who weren't saved, didn't come to Christ when you were knee-high to a grasshopper, I want you to think this through. When did you come to Jesus? And I think almost every one of you who got saved as an adult will then have your hearts and your minds directed to somebody who began to invest in your life. They began to take you out for coffee. They began to have you over to their house for dinner. They began to invite you to church. It always comes to somebody who began to pour into your life. We want to be people. We want to be people who are known as people who help people find and follow Jesus. There's no higher calling. There's no higher calling. I believe with all of my heart that Christians are the biggest hearted, kindest, spirited people in the world. And I believe Christians want to make a difference in their world. I believe Christians want to make a difference in their neighborhood. I believe Christians want to make a difference at their jobs. I believe that's on my heart. I think sitting here this morning, most of you are saying, yeah, Pastor, that's me, that's who I am. And then Wednesday comes. And you remember worshiping God on Sunday or maybe Saturday night and review your week, and somehow, some way, it's Wednesday morning and you haven't really helped anybody on the journey towards Jesus. How does that happen? Well, and I know this is simplistic, but if we divide our days into 3 chunks, this is pretty well how it goes. We work 8 hours a day, we sleep 8 hours a day, and we spend 8 hours a day at home recovering from working 8 hours a day. And we bought into the spirit of our culture, and whenever the church has operating under the spirit of our culture, it's really ceasing to be the church. Because our culture is completely different. But we bought into the spirit of the culture that says, my home is my refuge, my home is my hiding place, my home is where I go and I lock the door, and I recover there, and I do my own thing, and I get away so I can get enough strength to go back and do what I need to do the next day. And we have ceased to be the group of people that the church is supposed to be, the group of people who are helping people find and follow Jesus. In my other job, I have the privilege of interviewing young men and young women and sometimes older individuals who want to become ministers, called a credential interview. The last credential interview I had was with a guy who is probably about to enter his 4th decade of life, late 20s, early 30s. And we asked him to share his story about why he was going into ministry and why he'd gone to Bible college. And this is what he said. He said, about 4 or 5 years ago, I woke up one day and I said, what has happened to me? What has happened to me? I have become a moneymaker. I have become a money maker. I get up, I go to work, I make some money, I go home and hide in the evening, I go to sleep, I get up, make some more money, I come home and hide in the evening, I go to sleep, I get up in the morning, I make some, and he said, I got to this point in my life where I said, what is wrong? I've got to get this corrected. And that doesn't mean everybody needs to quit their job and go into their ministry. But a lot of us, if we're willing to be honest with our hearts today, would say, boy, making money has become a big part of how I spend my week. And friends, I want to suggest to you today that there's nothing wrong with having a job and being a great employee or employer. You need to be. But I want to suggest to you this morning that that is not the primary thing that Christians do. If we are connected to Christ and we're part of the church, we're driven by this need and desire to make disciples and help people find and follow Jesus. I'm going to stretch you a little bit this morning at the end of this service. Be forewarned. It won't hurt. It'll just feel like it's hurting. We need to recommit ourselves as the people of God to helping people find and follow Jesus. So I'm asking us afresh today to make three commitments. And the first commitment I'm asking us to make as the church, our church, the Neighbourhood Church, is that we find a place to make a difference in our church family. We find a place to make a difference in our church family. You see, everybody who's gathered in this sanctuary this morning falls into one of two categories. You either still need some help following Jesus and following him better, or you're at this marvelous place where you don't need help anymore. Please stand if you're in the second category. I'm joking. We all need help, and we need to help each other. We really do. And we help each other by getting together and finding a place where we can get connected relationally and encourage one another and push one another on and encourage one another. I used to say this a lot, and Pastor Yasmin in the last half a year or so has challenged me to say it more. I used to say, man, if you've only got one opportunity a week to give to Christian fellowship, please stop coming on the weekend and get involved in a group, because I really believe more things happen in a group of 15 or 16 or 8 or 10 people than it ever happens when we're lined up in straight rows. I hope you'd be able to find time to come to both. But really, if you can honestly say, oh yeah, I'm so busy helping people find and follow Jesus all week, I can only be together with Christians once, well then okay. Find a group. But find a group. And we'll be highlighting them over the next 3 weekends, different opportunities for you to be a part. But listen in by video to this opportunity as we talk about women's ministries at the Neighbourhood.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Williamson, and I'm the new leader of Tuesday Mornings. Tuesday Mornings is a Bible study open for all women of all ages. We have free childcare, we have coffee, tea, sometimes snacks. It's a time that we gather together to study the Word of God, to grow in our faith in the Lord, to get to know one another, to find a place where we belong, where we are known, where we're prayed for and encouraged daily or weekly. This term we're going to be studying the book of Psalms. Psalms is the book of the Bible that's probably the most read. It's the book that Jesus quoted the most. It's a book that's like the medicine chest for the heart and a practical guide for living. It's a book that's full of praise and worship and prayers, and we're going to be studying through those different types of prayers of the book of Psalms. So I welcome you to come and join us. As I said, there's free childcare, there's coffee, tea. We'll see you Tuesday morning, September 11th, the first meeting at 9:15 in the cafe.
So starting this September, we are excited that Sister Life's back for its second year. It will be on the last Sunday of each month, and I hope that you can join us. At Sister Life, it's a time that we get together once a month and have time together. And we get to do life together and be real together. And I know that sounds incredibly cheesy, and I get that. But the thing that I like to celebrate is sometimes we don't have positive things in common. We actually have grief in common, or storms in common, or just different situations, life situations. And it's a place where we can get together and meet people, chat, have coffee, and of course snacks. So I really hope that you'll come and join us. So pick up one of these cards in the lobby today to find out all the upcoming dates. And as you can see, they're cute. They got pineapples on them. I love pineapples.
So the first commitment I'm asking us to make is to find a place where you can make a difference in our church family. Let's not try to live this Christian life out on our own. And number two, we practice hospitality in our church building. We need to recognize that when people come into this house, if this is your regular place of worship, we have a responsibility of hospitality. On a normal weekend at the Neighbourhood Church, we have 30 to 40 guests, first time or second time guests, 30 to 40. Last night we had 25 first or second time guests at the Neighbourhood Church. Saturday, Marksville this morning we had 5 guests. We need to be hospitable. Now, we need to have the same spirit of hospitality in God's house as we have in our own house. So I don't think this is how it works at your house. You say, come on over for brownies and ice cream tonight, and the guest shows up and you let them in and you say, the brownies are upstairs there in the cupboard, and the ice cream is in the fridge, and look around, you'll find some spoons and a plate, and I'm going downstairs to watch the football game, and my wife, she's got to do some vacuuming. But enjoy the brownies and the ice cream. I hope everybody here has better social skills than that. Oh!
You better go.
When people come into this house, we have to be hospitable too. And so if you're walking in the washroom and you see some paper towels on the floor, if there were paper towels on your floor at your house, would you leave them sitting there? Thank you.
My wife made a mess, yes.
Of course you would. I know I would. I'd hear about it. How many times have you walked by that? You pick it up and you put it in the garbage because you're a good host and you want people to feel like they're in a clean environment. If you walk into the washroom and the guy before you had, notice I use the word guy, the guy before you had really, really dirty hands and there's dirt all over the sink, let's be good hosts. Let's grab a paper towel, warm the paper towel, clean the dirt up and make it clean again. Like we need to be good hosts. Somebody arrives and you don't know their name. This is not hard to do. You say, hi, I'm Pastor. Well, don't say this, but just hi, I'm Pastor John. You can try it. I work for you too. And then we need to have an environment where people know their kids are being loved and being looked after. Friends, we need a whole bunch of us to step out and help with our nurseries. We want to have great ministry to the good kids who come to this church. And we've had for a long time a precious few, and I salute you today, who have spent an inordinate amount of time in the nurseries during church service. You know, there's a solution here that would really change our church. Every one of us who's married and has kids has a few skills in terms of how to handle kids.
No.
We really need, in my judgment, if every couple in this church would just make life so much easier for Pastor Yasmin and the team, that every couple in this church would say, I'll work in the nursery one Sunday a year. One Sunday a year. If we can get 104 couples to do that, we've got our nurseries covered. And nobody has to carry an inordinate amount of responsibility or leadership here. I want you to consider that as a couple. Can you give us one Sunday a year in the nursery. I'm going to talk to my wife and see if she'll be willing to help with that. I suspect she will. Kids are a magnet. You say, well, I'm not married. Well, maybe you're here and you've got a son or a daughter to go in with you. Maybe you're sitting beside a 19 or a 24-year-old or a 37-year-old who can't come to your young adults ministry. But maybe you could team up and say, I'll go with that person and I'll work in the nursery. Pastor Yasmin will be in the foyer. I'd love to see us just make our nurseries function so much better. It's called being a good host. One Sunday a year. One Sunday a year. I'm sure you can bless families by doing that, but I'm sure Father would look down. And I kind of think the angels might talk about it a little bit too. Look at what they're doing at the neighborhood. They're actually investing in little kids. And the third thing I ask you to do is to practice hospitality in our community. I'm going to talk about this more in the weekends that are ahead of us. But I'm convinced we can turn this world upside down. I believe we can help people find and follow Jesus together. And I think it's really as simple as doing it one meal at a time. One meal at a time. One meal at a time. Just opening our homes up again and having people into our houses one meal at a time. And showing them what a Christian home and Christian relationships look like. You don't have to, the first time they come in, sit down and say, I got this little booklet here called The 4 Spiritual Laws. I thought before we eat, we go over this. It might take you 18 months to even get to talking about Jesus. But one meal at a time. One meal at a time. We can make a huge difference. We can make a huge difference in this city. I told you I was going to stretch you this morning. And I hope I don't make anybody really, really uncomfortable. But I want us to close with a time of prayer. And here's the part that I hope won't make you uncomfortable. And if it does, I've never done this before. You can come back next week and we'll probably never do it again, especially if you all are looking at it on the way over. But I just want us to cross this sanctuary to form groups of prayer. And I want us to go not sideways, I want us to go forward and backwards. So about 18 people there, 18 people there, and 18, 20 people here. And but please don't spend an hour figuring out if you've got 18. I really don't care if it's 16 or 22, but about 18 people here and 18 people here. And don't be afraid to mess the chairs up because we've got a green board of deacons and the members are going to stay after and just help us scrape the chairs. And some of you have different helps are going to help too. That's news to the board of deacons, but bless their hearts. And here's all I want you to do. When you get in your group, I want you to identify the person who's been attending the neighborhood a lot. So, and that'll become pretty obvious pretty quick. And then once that person is identified, I just want that person to either ask somebody if they'd like to lead in prayer, or they can lead in prayer themselves. And I just want you in groups to pray a very simple prayer. I want us to pray that we as people will be committed in a new way to helping people find and follow Jesus. Doesn't need to be a long prayer, but I just want us to pray. God help us as your people, your kids, to get a new commitment in our hearts to helping people find and follow Jesus. So here's the challenge, friends. You may be in a circle where you don't know everybody, so I want us to spend a couple minutes making sure you introduce yourself to the people in the group, and then lead a prayer. And once you've done that, I'm going to close the service in prayer. So let's stand and do it. We'll go over